Beef short ribs. If it's on the menu, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to order it. So today I'm going to make my favorite dish, but it's going to be a twist because I'm using my brand new Wi-Fi enabled Instapot. I'm going to make these beautiful short ribs in record time. We're cutting it short today here on Cooking with Mom. Short ribs in an Instapot, and I'm gonna go with the instructions that come on my Instapot app. I've got 2 pounds of short ribs, some mushrooms, Vidalia onion, garlic, looks like some butter over there. Yeah, look at that garlic. Don't worry, I'm gonna get that dirt off. Some butter, frozen carrots, some organic thyme, pepper, salt, balsamic vinegar, that's for later, some red wine, any kind will do. This is a cheap bottle, as you can see, and the Instapot. Now I'm going by these directions that come on the Instapot app. Go step by step and it tells you exactly what to do. So I'm scrolling through these directions and starting from the top with my brand new Wi-Fi enabled Instagram, and I'm going to only test this recipe out this time with only 3 of my short ribs. I have 8, but I'm only going to use 3 this time because if I mess it up, I don't want to mess up all of them at once. So here I go, the first step in the process. First step is to get those beef short ribs seasoned up. So I got some salt and pepper. I put those short ribs on some wax paper on top of a cutting board, and I'm seasoning liberally with salt and pepper, getting those all seasoned up and ready to go in the pan. I got to make sure that I season all sides of the beef. That's important. So I'm seasoning up these short ribs. Going to my second step, I need to get some olive oil and some butter and put it in the inner pot in the Instapot. So this is the inner lining of the pot, and I'm throwing in some butter and some olive oil. Now, this seems to cause the butter to get a little bit more brown than I would want. So the next time that I do this, I'm going to put the butter in last. But here I am putting the Instapot on saute so that we can sear up these short ribs. But first, I gotta melt the butter and heat the oil up in that inner pot in the Instapot. While that meat is searing, I might as well chop up my vegetables. So here I have some frozen carrots. I put them in the microwave for about 30 seconds to soften them up. And now I'm gonna chop them up and get them ready to go in our pan. Once I snap my fingers, I've got chopped carrots. Let's check those ribs. So they're browning, and you have to make sure that they sear on all sides. I said 6 minutes per side, but I didn't do that. I just did 6 minutes on the first side and then went from there, because 6 minutes is on all sides. Most of these short ribs have 6 sides, and that would just take too long. So here I am searing. Back to the vegetables. I'm going to go ahead and chop up my mushrooms as well. So I've got some cremini mushrooms that are already sliced, but I have to chop them up into small dices. And through the magic of TV, here they are chopped up ready to set aside. And we're going to do the same thing with the onion. Here's a Vidalia onion, and I'm getting that ready to chop up. And I'm going to do a rough chop on these. Vidalia onions are so nice and sweet and flavorful. And through the magic of TV, boom, we've got chopped onions. Looks like the meat is all ready to remove from the pan, all seared on all sides, nice and brown. That looks great. So I'm going to take these ribs, remove them from the saute pan, inner pan of the Instapot, put them in a foil-lined glass dish, and cover it with foil according to the directions. So the next thing we do, cover this with foil and go on to our next step in the process. Checking our recipe, the next step is to add the carrot, shallot, and garlic to the saute pan. So got to get the garlic together, and what I'm trying to do here is get the skin off the garlic. I've got 1 clove, and I'm going to chop them up real quick. Here it is, and I'm going to add all of that. The shallot, which is really onion because I didn't have any shallot. Got the carrot, and then I'm going to throw in the mushroom. And I'm going to cook that up a little bit. It said 2 minutes. I'm going to cook that up some before I put in the garlic because I'm always afraid of burning the garlic. So I'm going to mix that up. And after maybe about 1.5 minutes, I'm going to add up my diced garlic. The Instapot has a timer feature where I can go ahead and on the app put the timer, set the timer for however many minutes the step is going to take. And so that's what I'm going to do here is set the timer, and then when the timer goes off, it's time for my next step. The vegetables look good, so I'm going to deglaze that saute in a pan with some red wine, stir it up with a wooden spoon. I don't know why, but you have to use a wooden spoon. And then the next thing I do is put the meat back in the pan and top it with some fresh thyme. Then I'm setting my pot to pressure cook, putting the top on, making sure that the valve says seal, and then I'm going to go ahead and set my pot to pressure cook for 45 minutes according to the directions. Pressure cooking is done, 45 minutes. So now I'm going to let the pot sit for 15 minutes. That's called a natural release of steam. You just let it sit there for 15 minutes and then you release the rest of the steam through the valve. "15 minutes is up, but as you can see on that top, that steam valve is still up there, so I'm going to have to do a manual release of the rest of the steam, and I should have had some kind of glove on in case that was really hot, but I let the steam out and you see that plug go down. Next step is to remove the meat. Now it's supposed to be really tender, so I gotta be careful with it. I'm taking this top off, and I'm gonna take those ribs and I'm gonna remove them, put them in a pan to the side, and then I'm working on my sauce that goes over the ribs. After I remove the thyme sticks from the sauce, I'm gonna go ahead and set my settings on the Instapot to saute and add my 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar and go ahead and mix that up. According to the final instructions, would involve making the sauce that goes over the ribs. So what we're going to do is once this balsamic vinegar was added, we're just going to let this cook down for 10 minutes. And after it's done, we'll just take one of the short ribs, add this topping to it, and try it out. So here's a short rib with the topping on it, and I wanted to go ahead and try that and I tasted it, and it was as tough as all get out. So I had to start over from scratch the next day and make some modifications. Now that beef was just too darn tough, and I just won't accept defeat that way. So I cooked the rest of my short ribs the next day, and I made some modifications. First, I doubled the liquid. So I put in a whole cup of red wine to the vegetables, and then on top of that, I put in an extra half cup of chicken broth. Another modification, I put in 2 tablespoons of brown sugar into the sauce mixture to improve the flavor profile before I cook the meat. Next modification, I pressure cooked for 1 hour instead of 45 minutes. Final modification is I strained the sauce and then I skimmed the fat off of the sauce. The directions said to do that, but I ignored it the first time, and I had a much better sauce the second time. The second iteration came out just great, exactly what I had hoped for. Fork tender, succulent beef, incredible sauce, wonderful flavor profile, just great, exactly what I wanted. And I believe the Instapot saved me a great deal of time because normally it would take about 4 hours in the oven to cook this, not to mention the searing and the chopping. So I think I saved about 2.5 hours using my Instapot, and it came out just great. So if you want a restaurant quality meal in an abbreviated amount of time, think Instapot, think short ribs, think cooking with mom.